Hello everyone, SeeEl here, and today I've prepared two very interesting topics for you guys. The first being about the value of the Herald, and tied to this, a concept called dynamic value. Now, I've always called it dynamic value, but it's better known as transformative value thanks to a well-known content creator called LS. Now, I believe he coined it from a chess player. This is a re-recording of the original topics that I covered in my lecture/live classroom. If you guys are interested in that kind of content or, solo queue, or just any kind of coaching content in general, feel free to chuck a follow. I'll leave the link down in the description below. Okay. Now I don't really have a introductory video, so I'll just do a quick introduction on myself. My name is Chris. You can call me SeeEl, Chris, whatever you want. I've coached in Oceania, in North America, and Europe full time in the last 3 years. Sorry, not 3.5. And most recently, I was a finalist in the Spring playoffs in the LEC. Now, going straight into the topic, let's talk about the Rift Herald. What is its value? Okay. Now, the value should be determined by the opportunity cost of the Herald. So, what is the cost benefit, and that should determine its value. The first, obviously, mathematically speaking, is the tower plating. Each tower plating is about 160 gold, and when you put the Herald down, it'll kill 2 plates instantly. So that value is 320 gold. Okay, and if you manage to take the first tower, it should be 150 gold on top of that. So if you manage to take 5 plates plus first tower, that's 1,250 gold. Okay. Now the other thing that people forget about with towers is that you get defensive stats based on the number of people around it. The more people you have, the stronger the tower is, or the tankier the tower is, and also the less plates it has, the tankier the tower is. Okay, so by killing the Herald, mathematically speaking, you can accelerate the time it takes to kill this thing, right? Now the cost is generally associated with tempo. Now this is a widely used term in many coaching circles, and I think every coach has a different definition for it, right? But for me, I've always defined it as the ability to move first. Okay, and I've always taught it this way. And basically, tempo gives you a turn on the map to do whatever you want. Okay, so you can get tempo by having wave control. So if you pushed 2-3 waves in the tower and you move, then obviously the enemy have to take the minions. You can have tempo by recalling first. You can have tempo because the enemy took some time to kill an objective, right? aka a tower or a baron or a dragon. Okay. So the normal cost associated behind taking the Herald is tempo. And the reason is it's obviously a valuable objective, so people are going to try to contest it. And in order to ensure that you have it, you need to create some sort of advantage. So either that is a compositional advantage, like you win 3v3 topside, or a man advantage, right? A lot of this man advantage comes from bot lane. So in this example, Kalista Renata, very oppressive bot lane. If you have a matchup like Senatam, for example, where you can push first 3-4 waves and just perma have tempo on the map, then this is generally what they will do. They'll swap top lane as bot, and Kalista Renata will shift into top, in which there is man advantage and control over the Herald. Now the other example is obviously like a matchup like Ezreal Karma. If they have a very strong top laner like Renekton that they want to use, like in early levels, right, for the first Herald, that they want to use during the Herald fight, then maybe they just shift the support. But once again, they need to use a turn of tempo. And to gain that tempo, in the case of Ezreal Karma, they have a lot of wave control. They need to push bot and recall, and Karma will run straight through mid into this area, right, to create this man advantage, right? I mean, in this situation they can also swap, but Ezreal's an example where they can stay bot. Okay, so generally speaking, this is the cost of taking the Herald. Normally a shift in tempo in one way, shape, or form. Sometimes you do see clean 3v3s, but a lot of the time a well-prepared team will move their supports and either match or prepare a wave down bot. So the side that is giving up the Herald, right, that is not contesting the Herald, is generally doing that for 2 reasons, right? One of 2 reasons, or both reasons. The first major one being that they don't win, right? They don't win a 3v3 or 4v4. They just have stronger champions early. Or 2, that they might just not have control of the wave, and they'll just be second, right? So generally these are the reasons why they'll give the Herald. And because the red side in this case is using their turn to move to Herald, the blue side can always look to stack a wave and trade the plates on the opposite side. So as we talked about previously, the cost of the Herald is tempo. The benefit of the Herald is 2 plates. So if the blue side is able to trade 2 plates, then this is a close to even trade because they get waves as well. And if in the case that blue side is playing a scaling pick like Jinx, then that can't win early skirmishes anyway, then the person that uses gold more effectively is going to be on the blue side, right? So yeah, generally speaking, tempo is a cost. Now this is where dynamic value comes in, right? Basically, the idea behind dynamic value and the concept of dynamic value is that the value changes. The values of items, champions, compositions, and Herald changes based on the situation. So if you talk about Herald, it can be used to accelerate the game, right? And it can be used on any tower. Let's just delve a little bit more into this. So to give you an example of dynamic value in compositions, right? In compositions, let's look at Lulu or Galio. Now, these 2 champs, they're very good when champs come into them because they are able to polymorph or taunt, and in the case of both of them, provide some sort of shielding and peeling, right? So a champ like Akali that wants to dive into backline would lose value, and a champ like Lulu and Galio would have greater value in these type of games because they are a counter to each other, right? This is where dynamic value comes in, and this is where compositions matter. Now, alternatively, you could say that champs like Jace or Ezreal lower the value of Galio and Lulu because you can outrange them and poke them down, right? And so you have no reason to actually hard engage on them. So bringing back the topic of the value of the Herald, what is a dynamic value of Herald given each situation? We'll bring 3 champions up and kind of look at each champion as a case study, right? Look at Kalista, Renekton, and Jinx. Kalista, terrible scaling, scales variably but often bad, right? You can close games very quickly because it's very good at snowballing, it's very good at taking early dragons, you can force sell at like 23 minutes or whatever. But more often than not, it's countered by multiple comps. Wukong, Poppy, Talia. The more items they have, the harder it is for you to play. Champs like Senna as well. And you have like Renekton. It's like the same thing. You get outscaled by a lot of top laners. Ornn. You get outscaled by Aatrox, and it also struggles to close the games alone. So it's even worse in Kalista. But more often than not, it's just an early game facilitator, so you can make sure that you're taking these heralds and snowballing the game from early game, right? So third example, Jinx. Well, it scales extremely well, but because it struggles to build BT early in its item path, it may be countered by range, right? So you can get poked down. Still extremely proficient at sieging, scales very well. It can probably stall the games moderately decently as long as you still have towers up, right? So what does this kind of entail in terms of dynamic value relative to Herald with these champions? Well, as you can see, very unhappy when you're trading the map as Kalista and Renekton. You really want to accelerate. You really want to make sure that you have full control, towers, you shift first, you have deep pushed waves into Drake stacking. Whereas, Jinx has an option. Jinx has the option to go to Herald. If they can win the Herald fight, great. You are taking Herald on a scaling champion. Fucking absolutely wonderful. If you're trading the opposite side and you're stacking waves and you're taking 2 plates, that's still great as well, as long as you're able to stall the game and not completely lose off a Drake Soul or Elder or Baron or whatever, right? So same topic, but let's talk about control mages, because control mages also impact the dynamic value of the Herald, right? We know that control mages are very oppressive because they're very long range. They've got very good wave clear for the same reason. They're very good at stalling. And they have really insane scaling, right? And the 2 most famous ones that come to my mind is Orianna and Victor, but champs like Syndra and Anivia can also be good in certain spots. Anivia particularly against like low range champions. So why does mid tower, and why does the Herald value go up with these control mages? Well, it can accelerate the time that the first tier 1 tower dies. And if you lose the first tier 1 tower, then you're either putting a control mage in side lane or you're putting an AD carry in side lane with support mid and an AD carry alone in a side lane, right? And this is bad. If you get deep mid push and the tier 1 is gone, you're often going to lose control of your jungle. And if you lose control of your jungle, it often leads to a man advantage in the side lane, right? You're going to lose vision on your jungle and they're going to shift and go mid into bottom, mid into top. And because of this lack in vision, it's much more harder to defend or deep push, in which you will most likely lose your tier 1 outer turrets, right? And eventually the game. So, using the same example, mid tower has basically lower value in games without control mages for that same reason, right? And also, it means that Herald value is less in games without control mages as well, okay? If you have a bot lane combo that can provide mid priority for you, right, and you have no control mage, that's even better, because a lot of these non-control mage champions are very mobile, Ahri being the most famous one of them, and a lot of bot lane champions right now provide that, right? Caitlyn Lux, Lucian Nami, Ezreal X, Ezreal Karma, for example. These champions can provide mid prior for you. So for example, if Ahri opts to give the Herald, use his turn to go to bot instead, and then Caitlyn goes mid because Caitlyn breaks 5 plates using Ahri's earlier move, even if you lose the mid tower by losing the Herald, even if you're trading like this and they're accelerating the game or whatever, Caitlyn Lux can still provide your mid prior, can still contest without the mid tower, right? And you can stop them from basically pushing deep and taking full control. And even if they have full control, these mobile champions can essentially avoid these shifts, right? And defend better and farm better, okay? So in general, yeah, mid tower has lower value in games without control mages. So Herald has lower value. Herald has lower value when you have scaling on your bot side, and Herald has lower value if your bot lane can provide, mid prior permanently. A lot of this just comes down to scaling, right? Scaling basically just gives the opportunity to have more comeback mechanics or outs. And the dynamic value is more often a lot more narrower with scaling comps because you have more choices and you have the ability to just stall out games and win because time is your friend, right? You're happy to trade sides, therefore the value of Herald goes down. And a really good example of dynamic value in a modern game, aside from rogue games, which I will not be posting on my videos for obvious reasons, is like the CLG vs TL game recently, right? The game 5 where CLG picks Akali Yone and TL picks Jinx Lulu. Well, if I'm Jinx Lulu, they can take the Herald. I'm really okay as long as we're trading the opposite side. Aside from the obvious, other aspects of dynamic value, the compositional dynamic value, in which CLG picked 2 hard engaged champions into Zillion and Lulu, which, as we talked about before, lowers their value altogether, right? Now, if I were to go one step further, I'd like to talk about the inconsistencies in this draft. For example, Zeri, Renata, Poppy, all champions that want you to come in, right? Zeri ulti into kiting back, Renata ulti, Poppy W, Poppy ulti. So, the comp itself doesn't make sense, but that aside, okay, you can see how you're happy to trade the map and how scaling gives you more options and more outs. And I believe in this game, Hans just did like this super swap into top side and he just got 3 items and stalled the game until, he was able to just win the game from that, right? So in summary, you could say that the value of Herald changes depending on the draft. The purpose of every game is to win. So if you have scaling, you have more decisions in the game and you have more opportunities where it can lead to winning conditions. This doesn't mean you have a higher win percentage. If you have a champ like Kalista, your team plays it very well, or it's extremely OP in the meta, for example, and there's just no way to stop the snowball. If there is no way to really stall the game out, then obviously scaling can be bad in certain metas or certain champions. So I could see that happening, right? And you could also say that early game comps are harder to play because the range, the dynamic value range is a lot wider. Okay, the cost of not getting your Herald is a lot wider. The way that you have to play and the decisions that you have to make, and the general margin of error is extremely low. Okay, so you have less options and you need to play better. And in the end, I know a lot of coaches watch this. Each team is different. There is a close to perfect way to play, right? I think in a lot of cases you can just study the meta and the value of the Herald changes and you could talk about all this, but it comes down to how deep are you into the season? Are you in the playoffs or are you in the regular season or are you at the beginning of the season or are you in summer, like week 7 of regular season? Based on the amount of time you have, the strengths of your team, the strengths of your players, you need to change how you draft and how you value these heralds and how often you want to fight and how you want to coach or how you want to approach these fights in general, right? A lot of the time it will be band-aid solutions, and more often than not, if you manage to create a team that's extremely good around these early objectives, they will most often win championships. Okay, so I hope this video helped. I enjoyed making it. If you'd like to see more of this in the future, please subscribe. Please put the thumbs up, share it to your friends, tell your dad, call your grandma, let them know that, SeeEl created a video and this guy's awesome, this guy's great. And yeah, hope you enjoyed. Bye guys. I'll catch you on the flip side.